Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chapter 5 Motor Programs. All right, so this one's kind of an interesting chapter because we're going to kind of go into more what a program is and a motor program, how you kind of pull that and run it, like if you think of yourself as a computer. So here's all the kind of things. We're going to have some evidence for that motor program, and then there's some limitations to where that may or may not be correct. And then some generalized motor programs and evidence for that being, they call it generalized motor programs rather than just a motor program. All right, so let's watch this person dive. All right, so you'd probably say that each time that person dives and does a specific flip or triple or twists and whatever they're doing, that they are doing a specific motor program. So let's think about that. So watching a diver complete a rapid, complex, acrobatic maneuver while free falling towards the pool gives the impression of a single fluid coordinated motion. So how does a skillful diver produce so many movements so quickly? What exactly controls them and how are they combined into a whole? A skilled diver gives us the impression that these quick movements might be organized in advance and performed without a whole lot of feedback or control, or at least using relatively slow kinds of feedback that we discussed in Chapter 4. I can tell you that I have taught some of these aerial type moves, and you definitely teach them in sequence and slowly and spotted until they can actually proceed through the whole thing safely. So a motor program, here's this, they call it, is a pre-structured set of movement commands that defines and shapes the movement. So I swing a baseball bat, hit a golf ball, shoot a basketball. A free throw would probably be the easiest one because there's not as much chaos going around it. But those are all motor programs, and it would seem that the diving would be a motor program too. Keep that one in mind. Let's keep going. So there's two types of motor program controls that we can think of here. So first we have a closed loop. So that would be the slower kind that has feedback that we can alter during the skill. And as you're going up for a jump shot and you double pump and you hit, that's a closed loop. Open loop are ones where the decisions are made before the skill. Maybe diving, maybe not. Throwing a dart, swinging a hammer. All information for that movement is sent in a single message, especially if you miss and you hit your thumb. Boom. Yep, there's some closed loop feedback right there. So open loop control, the modifications for that action are made while the action is in progress. So this is that shorter one there. The plan of action is stored in the long-term memory, so it turns into an automatic discrete, so a tennis swing or a golf swing. So you have kind of your motor control mechanism, the command, and the movement all together kind of go in one shot there. A little more on that open loop control. A basic open loop system consists of two parts, the executor and the effector, and there's not really any feedback in that open loop system. So it's not really sensitive. It's not sensitive whether the actions are affecting or meeting the goal. Modifications to the action cannot be made while it's in progress. So that's kind of how you define these. So you'd have your executive, action, input, action, does it work or not, and then the output. So the motor programs as an open loop system. So an open loop system is especially important in its environmental situation that is predictable and stable. A free throw, a tennis serve, whereas a basketball normal jump shot, there's other things that are unpredictable and unstable. Most tennis returns are going to be unpredictable and not stable. So that's why we say things that are consistently the same all the time here. Most circumstances, the human appears to have a carried out without or much possibility or need for modification, unless it doesn't go in. So everything here in green. So your stimulation, this back to the beginning here, chapter 1, identification, response selection, and then the movement programming that we are going to now execute. And then you'd have your program being run, and then your feedback from your spinal cord or your muscles, depending on which type of feedback we're getting, which we've kind of gone over this just a little bit already. All right, so taking the reaction time from a couple chapters ago and putting that into a program. So a reaction time increases when you have additional elements. More limbs must be coordinated. It was actually very interesting to me. I am a rock band drummer originally. So Rock Band, Guitar Hero, you may or may not remember those. Those were like my jam. But there's only one pedal. There's a right foot pedal. The left foot doesn't do anything. So when I started playing praise music for church, all of a sudden I have this left foot that I have no idea how to coordinate in. And it really did slow down how well I could do on a song, especially when I didn't know it or had played it before, when I have to figure out how to use my left foot. Because I have to really think about that one limb that I'm not used to using. So the duration of the movement becomes longer. I will get behind when I'm trying to do something with my left foot. So interpreting and influence the complexity of that skill. Therefore, the duration of the motor program stage. So the reaction time here can be dramatically shortened. A loud acoustic signal usually produces a startle indicator. And we talked about that a little bit in chapter 2 with the runners trying to run faster or trying to jump the gun. But it actually can startle you into doing something. So let's see, what's my thing over here? So preparing a movement is also normally, but an actual reaction time is up to 100 milliseconds. So about a tenth of a second. Shorter than those with extra startle stimuluses. I think I have some things over here. So one of the studies that we had here from 2011, occasionally the stimulus, so they were doing some sort of program here. So the reaction time is a paradigm. The participants particularly were asked to prepare for a rapid, forceful, maybe complex response to a moderate intense stimulus. So either a green or an auditory noise. Well, occasionally in this study, so let's just say they were trying to have them jump, start running as fast as when the buzzer went off. Well, they were doing kind of a normal, either green or a normal sound. Well, occasionally they made it really loud acoustic symbol or signal. So 130 decibels is what they used in this study. So by comparison, a chainsaw or a rock concert is about 120. So loud noise. The loud acoustic sound usually produced a typical startle indicator. So clenched neck or jaw muscles, among other reactions. However, the interesting part here, it also happens that the movement is produced with a response time up to 100 milliseconds faster with an extra startle stimulus. So I had this backwards, my apologies. So when it was louder, that made it so even though the movement itself remained unchanged. So what that suggests is if you have a pre-programmed, I'm going to run on the beat, I am going to swing this hammer when the beep or the green happens, and then an extra loud noise happens, the response time is quicker. Very interesting. Now, a place where we've probably seen this in real life. Football! I would happen to have the 49ers game on behind here as I'm recording this.
4-3? Hey, yeah, 4-3, 4-3. Blue 58! Blue 58! Aaron. Green 18! Green 19! Hut! 3-3?
Yeah, spot.
Blue 58! Blue 58!
Jones.
Green 19! Blue 58! Blue 50! Hold on! Answer! Green 19! Green 19 up!
Of anything.
Set up!
But it was pretty clear when you saw it. That's what Steratore saw. And so it's a first down. And now Rodgers, who's so good on that hard count, you got a free play, so he goes deep downfield. And they put him in motion in the slot now. Empty backfield, 5 wide.
Gets him to jump.
And Rodgers is going to begin to take off and then fire, and it's caught. Touchdown.
Jones is averaging 6 yards.
So there's a great example of Aaron Rodgers, who isn't playing for the Green Bay Packers anymore. Last he was going to play for the Jets, but he hasn't come back yet when I recorded this. So, but that is, they call it a hard count, and that's that extra loud noise to take that pre-programmed jump on the ball to try to get as fast off the ball as you can when it's hiked. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get that reaction that's 100 milliseconds faster, and they're trying to make it work against them. So there are some differentiated experiments here. Now, this was done in the late 60s. So work with me here. Let's look at the idea of this, not look at the efficacies of this, because this is not an ethical thing to do, but it is interesting. So what they did is they took monkeys and they severed, using surgery, the nerve bundle, or the afferent nerve bundle, so the things so they could feel whether their arms or legs were doing something. The central nervous system could no longer receive information for some portion of the peripherals, so their arms, their legs, their fingers, whatever. The study showed that the sensory information from that moving limb is not critical for the movement to happen. So what was interesting there, so like a gunshot to a spinal cord victim, after that it all healed and everything as much as they could, but they still had no feeling. They could still move their knee to a specific angle without sensory information. And what they found in this one here is like these monkeys could still swing from limb to limb, even though they couldn't feel, didn't have any afferent sensory information coming from that. But there's also, you could also look at this in a more ethical way. When my wife was giving birth to our son, they gave her an epidural. And she could still get up before and after the birth to use the bathroom. So that was just a really interesting, she still had the programming to walk even though she couldn't feel her legs. So general pattern, or a central pattern generator. So this is similar but not exactly the same. So a centrally located mechanism that produces mainly genetically defined actions. The concept is simple to describe, but difficult to get more details in. So the concept is kind of simple. Genetically defined things like walking. In comparison, motor theory suggests that riding a bicycle is a learned skill, not a hereditary skill or genetic skill. So over here I have on here. This was developed to explain certain locomotion in animals, such as swimming or chewing in hamsters or snakes slithering. So there are some inhibiting actions here. So a motor program is released, like swinging a bat in this case. Is it responsible for initiating the action? Also serves to carry out the entire thing. But what happens when it's a bad pitch?
Hey, this is Coach Zach of Baseball Stars. In this video, we're going to go over how to do a check swing. So a check swing is when you've already started your swinging motion, and then we're going to stop halfway. So, for instance, if you recognize a ball from the pitcher and it looks like a strike out of his hand, but then it happens to be a ball, you want to have the power to stop your swing halfway so we don't get strikes called on us for swinging at pitches that we don't want to swing at. So, starting from my stance here, a check swing, you load, stride, and then you're firing your hips and you're stopping in the drive position right here with the bat up against the shoulder, and we're going to have that knob towards the pitcher, and then we're in this position there. So if you do a check swing and if you fire the hands first and then you come here, well, now that's a strike because my bat has gone too far. So you want to keep the wrist locked in, avoid casting your hands. You should just learn how to do that anyways throughout your swing. And then so you learn to really load, stride, lock in the hands, chin to your shoulder, knob back, fire the hips, and then keep that bat right up against your shoulder. Work on this full speed. So like as you're doing batting practice or as you're practicing, if you see any balls thrown at you, try to do check swings on the balls like this. And then if you see strikes, of course, you want to swing and you want to try to hit those strikes. So just build the muscle memory through your swing and have the power to stop your swing halfway with that bat up against your shoulder, so you can.
The other place I've seen this is, if you've ever watched Tiger Woods when he's in the middle of his drive, and at the top of his swing, like halfway down, he just stops because somebody's like camera shutter went off. Back when they actually had camera shutters at sporting events. Now they just use their phones. But this thing here said, I have a note here that says 150 to 170 milliseconds is what you have before you can stop the reaction. So like before you can flip those, before you decide to flip your wrist, you have 150 milliseconds. So 10th of almost 2/10 of a second. So then there's the muscle response pattern. So the limb's electrical muscle activity are unaffected for 100 milliseconds to 120 milliseconds when the limb is blocked by a mechanical perturbation. So this would be like elbow extension movement, like pushing a lever, bicep, tricep, bicep. So if you're like pushing it forward, backwards, forward on a lever. So when they're turned off the resistance, it went actually backwards. It went tricep, bicep, stop. So I probably didn't describe that one right. It'd been better if we'd done that one in person. I could actually show you like me moving my arms here, but we're going to keep on rolling. All right, so here's some experiments. Stand up. Yes, you need to actually stand up. This will make sense. I should have made these go in number here. So put your arms out like a T. And on 3, I want you to clap your hands above your head. 1, 2, 3, go. Now, we're going to stop the video here and say, what muscles contracted first in this action? All right, so interestingly enough, they have actually tested this. Most of you probably said either your triceps or your deltoids, maybe your traps, that's your neck, the ones there. Oddly enough, that muscle, in at least using the electromagnetic things where they stick them on there and see if there's any electromagnetic activity in the muscle, the lower back and legs have about 80 milliseconds before the shoulder muscles contract. Anybody want to stand up and try it again? 1, 2, 3, go. So they call this the conceptual model of programs here. So motor programs operate in a system in conjunction with feedback, generally speaking, or sometimes I should say, producing flexible skilled actions. So the open loop part of these actions provides an organization that the feedback process can later modify if necessary. So if it doesn't work, they try it again. And they try to make those little changes. So that major roles of that organization there is to define when muscles contract, how forcefully, how long the muscles contract for, and which muscles to contract. So when you're I see this when I teach shooting a lot. Like if you're having someone do a shooting thing, the timing, when muscles contract, totally, they're usually doing it from like their 3rd grade shot. They're dipping their hip kind of thing. And we're trying to get them to actually use their legs to shoot the ball and not their arms, because they've probably been using a basketball that's too heavy. We'll get into that in biomechanics because that's one of my favorite labs. So when before the movement do you move to stop at the 800 millisecond mark? So they actually had, I wish this was a little bigger. Do I have any more details here? Nope, that's it. So if you're trying to how early, so if this thing was like spinning around in circles here, to try to click, how far before would you have to pull the motor program and start it before you clicked here? That's what we want to know. That's the experiment here. Hopefully I have a little more here. So to organize the many degrees of freedom of your muscles joints into a single unit, you want to specify and initiate preliminary postural adjustments necessary to support the upcoming action. This is why we tell players to have a wide base with their feet so that they're ready to move as quickly as possible. So they used to have, I'm not sure why this is on here. Let me see. Before officiating was automated in races, 100-meter sprints were timed by hand with a stopwatch. So the timing judge started her watch when she saw smoke of the starter's pistol and stopped it when they crossed the finish line. All right, and then that will modulate the many reflex pathways to ensure that the movement goal is achieved. So a couple other things here. So integrating central and feedback control. So a motor program is responsible for the major events in the movement pattern. So reflex responses can be integrated with a open loop control, and then making changes, or it makes the movement flexible in the face of environmental changes. So there are some problems with motor program theory. One, there's a storage problem. I know our brains can hold a lot of things. So you can only, we have stored countless of motor programs for future use. And these make stored programs instantly retrievable by memory. So that's maybe a problem with it, is we could only have so many things. Or we'd have to have a new one for every single minor change. So like for shooting a basketball, or tennis is probably a better one. For every single foot pattern and swing pattern, I have to have every single one of those like programmed into my brain before I do it. Well, what if it has just a minor change? So the novelty problem. So how do performers produce a novel movement that they've never performed previously? I've seen people shoot a 3-point shot near the end of a game as they're falling out of bounds, and like they don't practice off of 1 foot. We call it the Rex Chapman shot. Is when I was in, he was a guy for the Phoenix Suns. He's actually a pretty big social media guy now. But Rex Chapman did this, like he was coming towards the ball in a sideline out of bounds, put his left foot on the ground as he's falling out of bounds, shot it kind of over his shoulder from almost mid-court, and it went in. We're like, you don't practice that shot. Well, we did after he did, but I mean, within a couple of years, nobody's doing it. So how do you explain somebody doing such a great movement and a great shot on something they've never practiced, so it wouldn't be in their memory already? So that's where generalized motor program theory comes in, and this attempts to explain the variations. So general motor program theory underlies a class of movements that is structured in memory. So the forehand that we have people practice, the jump shot we have them practice, is structured in memory with a rigid, defined, and they call it temporal organization, as in your brain organization. Forehand here to here to here to here to here. That is all part of the formula. So variations in the movement, the timing, or movement timing, the aptitude, how strong you're hitting it, and the limb used to represent the movement's surface structure. So general motor program structure is characterized by its timing. So relative timing can be measured by a set of ratios, durations of different events. Could be represented from deep fundamental structure, or it remains completely invariant and the structure is difficult to alter over here. So I have over here on the side, timing is key feature in things like a golf swing or work-related activities like typing or hammering. And there's strong evidence to suggest that relative time is an invariant. So the timing doesn't matter as much. So some of those parameters here is that relative timing may be carried out with different surface features, so duration, strength. So how hard you're shooting a jump shot is probably the easiest one for me to think of. So parameters change. Only the parameters change only how the gross motor program is expressed at any given time. So this would adjust for how hard you need to hit, how hard you need to shoot, and some of those timings there. So especially, it's easier to think of, I mean, I know I talk a lot about basketball, but it would be the same concept with pickleball, tennis. How hard you think and how fast you swing will affect, and that's what they're saying here. You have a program that you've programmed, but it adjusts to where the ball is or the footwork or whatever, how fast and how hard you need to hit it. So there's different classes of actions in a general program. So motor programs can be thought of as a generalized to the account for the class of different actions, such as throwing. So parameters must be supplied to define the way that in which each pattern is executed, whether it's rapid or slow. So those are kind of the two things there. All right, and then the last little bit here. So this one says a good analogy for a gross motor program would be a turntable system here. So this, and let's see, in which a turntable sends the signals from the record. I know you guys probably don't know what a record is, but you might have heard of like a DJ where this music is coming from here. And that is going to send the signal out to the speakers. This is called, in this analogy, the illustration of the top portion, that's these here, of the phonographic record represents a gross motor program. The speakers are the muscles and limbs, and the record has all the features and programs, such as information about the order of events, the guitar solo that's about to come, before the harmonica solo is what this says. Weird, I know. The timing, the temporal structure among the events, the rhythm or the relative timing, and the amplitude. So amplitude would be here. The timing is faster, slower. So this information is stored on the record itself, just as the gross motor program theory says that the analogy of information of the motor program is analogous information stored. So there are many different records you can choose from, just as humans have many different programs, throwing, running, jumping. Each of these is stored in different kinds of information. So you would pull out that turntable, put it on there, and then run that program depending on how fast or how slow or what tempo, how strong it needs to be. So that would be kind of going on. So, yeah. We'll just run with that. Let's see if there's anything else here that needs to go. So that's the end of the lecture. Let's see. So there might be some other here. We have an assignment on day 2. I think we're going to work on it as a partner. Work with a partner if you have not worked with one. Oh, yeah, I wanted people to move around last time. And it is a tossing paper. And then, so we're going to kind of think about this with a motor program being relative and parameters here. Kind of a little difference there. I think this was something I stole for something else, so we're going to delete this part. Bye!